Are you ready to listen to my dad Joe and Uncle Justin talk about sports? Now on with the show!
The Joe Mays and J-Raff Show is brought to you by Mays Sandwich Shop, which have been serving the greater West Lawn area delicious food for over 70 years. You are listening to the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show.
Boring.
A weekly podcast about sports since 2011.
Don't you ever get tired of being wrong all the time?
With a focus on football.
Kansas City 31, San Francisco 20. Mahomes takes the snap. He is just going to throw it long for Demarcus Robinson. It is going to use up all the time. The game is over, and the Chiefs' kingdom has firmly planted its flag on top of football's highest summit. The Kansas City Chiefs are champions of Super Bowl 54.
Now, here are your hosts, Joe Mays and Justin Raffoff.
Attention parents and coaches. Do you wish you had a safe social media platform for your youth athletes? Fortunately for you, there's a revolutionary new app that helps with just that. Introducing Small Player, Big Play. Small Player Big Play app provides young athletes, parents, and coaches a user-friendly sports social media platform. The app allows users to connect with friends, make new friends, create groups, text, chat, and post pictures and videos of you and your teammates participating in your favorite sport or activity. To begin, users can simply download and sign up for the app using an email account. Younger users have the ability to sign up using their smartphone and a parent's email address. From there, users can begin to interact and engage with other users of the app. Small Player Big Play app also gives users the ability to live stream full games and events. You can live stream your event so that friends, family, or anyone in the world can see you in action. Users can also share posts from the app to their other social media accounts like Facebook and Twitter. What are you waiting for? Get in the game and share your love of sports with the world. Download the Small Player Big Play app today.
All right, everyone, and welcome back to the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show, episode 307, if you can believe that. And Justin and I are here this evening to continue our 2020 NFL preview. And this evening, Justin and I will be talking about the AFC West. So let's welcome in now co-host Justin Raffoff.
Yeah, it's good to be here. I look forward to the days where we can do shows in person again. So, but this'll do.
Yeah, what's that like? I don't know. It's been 6 weeks now.
It's been a while.
Yeah, because we were able to squeeze in a few in person there right at the beginning, like the first weekend and then the second weekend, and then things got really bad, and was decided that we probably shouldn't test the jurisdiction, the laws,
right.
and we just decided to stay safe and keep everyone at home. And it's been okay, but it is fun to do the show together in person. So I do definitely miss that. But, again, someday it'll happen. But for now, we'll stick to staying home, staying safe, and conducting the show remotely. All right, so 2020 NFL preview. Yes, it's only May, but we love talking football here on the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show. And this evening, we get to continue our discussion about the AFC West is what we're talking about this evening. Again, we want to thank Small Player Big Play and Mays Sandwich Shop for sponsoring the show. And hope everyone takes the opportunity to download the app if you're into youth athletics, and you heard in the promo there just what the app is all about, and definitely take advantage of the opportunities it provides, especially if you're the parent of a young athlete. It has great use for those that can't be there in person at games, and again, it has that nice social quality to it, and it is completely 100% safe for kids and their families to use. So definitely take advantage of that on Apple or Google. So for the AFC West this evening, we're talking about a pretty big division because it's home of the defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs, and then a few teams that are just kind of waiting in the wings to see if they can unseat the Kings, and we're going to find out if any of us think that will happen this season. So right off the bat, let's start with our number 4s, Justin, and I think last week I put you on the hot seat first, so I will flip that around on myself, and I will go first tonight and talk about who my 4th place team in the AFC West will be.
Okay.
All right. So, well, you were able to provide us with a little bit of a research opportunity where you painstakingly entered every single game from the NFL season into a Google sheet, and we were able to answer who we thought would win each game. And from that, we figured out what the records of every team in the NFL will be based on our predictions. And this is a way to check us, like we mentioned last week. Sometimes places do predictions, but they end up, you're not able to get to the point. You know, everyone wins too many or too few games. And we wanted to avoid that. So we came up with this, or you came up with this spreadsheet, and I'm reading from it now after we both entered the information to try to get an idea of what do I actually think is going to happen in the AFC West. And I am apparently very high on a team that many will be surprised to hear, and maybe lower on a team that people expect more from. But I believe that I'm pretty spot on with my predictions for this one team in the AFC West. And my 4th place team is going to be the Las Vegas Raiders. I am not high on the Raiders. I don't expect a lot from them this year. I just don't know that John Gruden is the guy out there. I am a pretty solid supporter of Mike Mayock, but I just don't know if John Gruden's ways are the proper way to coach nowadays. I think he was doing a great job with his commentation, his commentary, and his media stuff, but I don't know. For some reason, I just don't buy the Raiders. I don't think they've got a lot going for them. I think they're a lot of splash, and I think the ghost of Al Davis has sprinkled into their picks in the drafts and in free agency, and I just am not high on what the Raiders have done or what they are expected to do. You know, and when it comes down to it, I think you have to look at the quarterbacks, and while I think Derek Carr at one time was a potential to be a solid starter, I don't think he's any more than that, and I believe they think that. If you're bringing in Marcus Mariota, you know, a former, number 2 pick just a few years ago by the Titans, you can't be that confident in your quarterback situation. And we heard that, would they go after Tom Brady? Would they be looking to draft someone? I don't think they're sold on Carr. I think Mariota is going to end up being a stopgap. They're looking for someone, and I think they might have the opportunity to pick one of the quarterbacks in the top 10 next year, because I don't see them being a super strong team this season. So the Raiders, their first season in Las Vegas in the Allegiant Stadium, if it's done on time, they are my 4th place team in the AFC West, and I have them going, and I think this is about right. Based on the games that I input, I have them going 6-10, and I think that's right where I'm going to place them.
Yeah, see, that's interesting, and I could definitely see it going that way. The Raiders overperformed to my expectations last year. I know at times they played better than they did over the course of the whole season. The season was still actually pretty rough, but I thought it was going to be an absolute dumpster fire, and it wasn't necessarily that. However, you raise legitimate points. Like I still am not sold on Gruden being the answer to make them, the Super Bowl caliber team. And what, they only owe him like $80 more million,
something like that,
as a coach. But it's really interesting because I don't know. I think last year maybe it fooled me a little bit, and this is one of those when I went through and I picked all the games. AFC West was one of the areas where I would look at it. I'm like, oh man, I don't know that actually reflects what I think about these teams. Because, when I picked the games, I picked the Raiders to do actually fairly well. And like the Broncos and Chargers, I picked to not do real well. So, but when I look at it, when I'm making more of like a holistic prediction, I think I'm going to put the Chargers as the last place team. And that is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go with the Chargers in fourth place. I think that they are in full rebuild mode. I know they're not, they've got some pieces there over the last few years. But I think last year, I don't know what the issue was. Was it Phillip Rivers is like shot, he's got nothing left? Or was it he didn't have enough to take that team above and beyond, and they didn't really help him on the line? Like, there were lots of issues, and I don't know where the blame falls. And like most things, there's probably enough to go around for everybody. That it's a really interesting thing, because it'll be really interesting to see if Phillip Rivers has it in Indy. Yeah, because if he does, that's a really intriguing situation, and we'll get to that, eventually. But I look at it. I just don't know that they have enough, and I don't know that the Raiders are like. I don't think they're going to be like really good, but I think they're going to be all right again. And I think that's kind of where I'm going to have them pegged a lot in this John Gruden era. I think they're going to be okay, which is better than I had them being last year. But I'm going to go with the Chargers in last place. And I think, honestly, somewhere around like 4 wins or so. And yeah, it's just with the Chargers, I don't know.
Do you think
I don't
Tyrod
know.
Taylor starts every game for them, or you think we see Justin Herbert?
Not a chance. Not a chance. He starts every game. When look at it just from purely the standpoint of you're the second team in LA, so like you're going to be trying to make some noise at some point, right? You're in the new stadium, in theory, that you also share. There are not many things that I feel are absolutes in the NFL. Tyrod Taylor starting every game is not one of those absolutes that I would think. Actually, I go the other way. I would almost say it's absolutely a guarantee that he will not start every single game.
And do you think that's because of injury or effectiveness or overall team play? Why do you think Tyrod Taylor doesn't have a chance to start 16 games?
Going to be team. I think it's going to be team play. I think there's going to be, some level of. I think there's going to be. I think the team's going to struggle. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was Tyrod Taylor in Cleveland a few years ago, right?
Well, it actually happened to him twice.
Right.
Because he left Buffalo as a free agent and went to Cleveland. Or was he traded? Now I don't remember how he ended up. No, the Bills did trade him. So the Bills drafted, before they drafted Josh Allen, they were like, we're going to move on from Tyrod Taylor. They traded him to the Browns. They proceeded to draft Josh Allen.
They kept starting Nate Peterman.
Right. Then the Browns drafted Baker Mayfield. And, Tyrod Taylor lasted just 3 starts with the Browns. And then last year he went to the Chargers and played which was interesting
because everybody was like, oh, man, that rookie year, they're like, how could you keep Baker on the bench? Look, he was so electric. And then last year everybody's like, oh, where's the Baker that was electric, So, like,
and Tyrod...
I just think I don't see the Chargers as like a playoff caliber team. And if you're not, at some point they're going to throw Herbert out there and get him learning. You know what I mean? So, I just think the business side of things, which they're clearly about, they're going to get Herbert out there sooner rather than later. I would put it, I don't know when their bye is, but I would bet by week 11 or 12, you're definitely going to see Herbert.
Okay. So, it would be a wonderful segue if I had the Chargers in third, but I don't. So, who's your number
That's
three
fair.
if the Chargers are four?
Well, okay. So this is where I'm going. I'm going to go with the Broncos as my. No, sorry. I am going to go with the Broncos. I'm going to go with the Broncos. I got all mixed up with my order because I was looking at someone else's order.
It's unacceptable. This is a professional show, Justin.
Exactly. I'm going to go with the Broncos. And this is tough because, again, when I picked the games, I did not pick them to win many games. I don't know what it is. I think it might just be that I want him to be the guy, but I think Drew Lock, I think he could be a potential of a guy that they could build around out there. I don't think he's like a superstar or anything like that, but I think he's got enough to kind of get them where they need to be. And we'll see how that goes. I'm intrigued to see how it works out, because it seemed to go bad in a hurry there the last few years. And I don't, while I hope Drew Lock works out, I don't really know that he will. They definitely added some weapons, so it could be exciting to see. And I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt that they're moving in the right direction, but I'm going to put them probably around 7 wins, maybe pushing for 500, not pushing for a playoff spot or anything like that. But I think they're going to see some movement in the right direction in Denver, and I'm going to put them at 7, pushing to get to 500.
Okay. And I'm right there with you. Denver is my third place team. So you have them, 7, 8 wins, I guess.
Yeah.
Which is good, which is nice. They went 7-9 last year. They were 6-10 in 2018. So they saw a 1-game bump from 18 to 19. I'm actually going to give them a 2-game bump this season, and I'm going to have them at 9-7, but still in third place in the West. I think it's going to be a tight race for second place in the West. Obviously, I mentioned that I don't have the Chargers in third or fourth, so you know that they're yet to come. But I think my third and second place team will be neck and neck, wire to wire. Who's it going to be? Who's going to be the runner-up in the AFC West? But I think third place is going to be Denver, and they're just going to be a hair short, whether it's a tiebreaker or 1 win. We'll see, but I do have the Broncos in third place at 9-7, which is exactly what I picked for them in your spreadsheet. So
there you go.
I nailed that one. Denver at 9-7. Why do I think Denver goes 9-7? Well, I think another year of Drew Lock is a good thing for them. I was pretty high on him coming out of the draft. I think he's now had a few off seasons to get ready. We saw him play last season, and I think there's been some progress made. I think he's the guy to do it, and I think there's an opportunity for them to steal a few wins. They finished strong. They won their final 2 and 4 out of their last 5. They split the record in the division at 3-3 last season. So I think Denver is a team that could make some noise this year. I mean, not necessarily challenge for the division title or anything like that. I think they're a few wins behind doing that, but I think they could maybe look towards that added wild card berth. I think a 9-7 team could be in the running for that. We've seen 9-7 teams make it as the 6th seed, so why wouldn't it make sense for them to possibly make it as a 7th seed? So I think at 9-7, Denver's positioned to possibly make some noise there. And they lost a few people. Probably the biggest one was Chris Harris, their cornerback, who went to division rival the Chargers. But I don't know that they lost all that much that I think is a huge deal. Maybe they're losing their center, Connor McGovern. Could be an issue along the offensive line. I don't like losing offensive linemen, but he was probably one of their bigger losses. But they did add Melvin Gordon from the Chargers, and he will get to share time in the backfield because there are carries made available when Devontae Booker left for the Raiders. A lot of Broncos guys leaving for division rivals apparently, but I did like their draft, adding players to the arsenal for Drew Lock. They got Jerry Jeudy at 15, and then they came back and got KJ Hamler, which I know Austin was very disappointed that KJ did not go to Philadelphia. But hey, like we said, the second best option for your rooting interest, probably going to Denver, and that's where he is. He went at 46 in the second round. So, right away you're adding two guys to the mix that could be a huge difference makers for that offense. And we know, obviously, they have Deshaun Hamilton out there as well as Cortland Sutton, who had a great season last year. And they also have Noah Fant, another a tight end there that, that's a pretty decent offense. And everyone's talking about Tampa Bay right now. But if Drew Lock takes a step forward, having, Gordon and Lindsey at running back with Hamilton, Hamler, Jeudy, Sutton, and Noah Fant, that's a pretty decent, at least on paper, that's a lot of quality talent along, at least at the skill position part. You got to make sure that you're keeping them upright, protecting them along the offensive line. We'll see how that group comes together. Again, like I said, their center leaving in free agency. But the defense will always be pretty strong when you can throw Von Miller out there. And as long as they get proper play on the defensive backfield, Harris is gone, but they brought in A.J. Bowie to kind of take over his spot. I don't know. I like Denver. I think they're trending in the right direction. I don't see a huge 4 or 5 win boost, but I think a respectable 2-win boost could get it done for Denver, and they could be it could be a decent season for them in 2020, and then who knows, they could then be working their way towards a division title here in another season or two. So Denver, my third place team at 9-7, but I definitely have them trending up. So my number 2. Sorry, go ahead.
No. That's good. I was just going to segue into your number 2.
Okay, so my number 2 is a team that we already discussed, or you already discussed, and I just want to make sure that we give proper respect to this team for the way they're going to look on the field, because it's clearly the best of the new ones. Maybe it's not the best overall. You could argue that, but I think of the teams that debuted new uniforms, it's definitely hard to top what the Los Angeles Chargers have done. Excellent redesign, just a little bit of tweaks here and there, but they touched on the major significant parts of their history of the Chargers franchise. They did an excellent job of molding vintage retro with the contemporary and modern. The colors pop, the jerseys and pants work so well together. They're the only team in the NFL now with numbers on their helmets, which they brought that back. That was a staple in the 60s and 70s. And I just think they did an excellent job. And we talked about the Rams last week and how, sometimes you're going to play bad if you look bad. We've heard that talked about in college all the time. A lot of recruits talk about uniforms as a big reason. That's kind of why Oregon blew up on the scene in the last decade, was everything that Nike was doing with them. And that got the recruits' attention. Well, you want to look good and play good, and I think the Chargers are definitely at the top of that list. I think they did excellent in their redesign. Why am I so high on them? Honestly, I'm not really sure. It just sometimes there's a bit of addition by subtraction, and it's tough for me to say because, at least on this show, I've always been a big supporter of Phillip Rivers. I thought he never got the due he deserved. He was always, continually underrated, and maybe he's not clutch, and maybe he couldn't get it done necessarily when the team needed him most. It's tough for me to say, not being a Chargers fan, it doesn't matter all that much. But something says that Rivers and Gordon are gone, and I'm not sure it's going to make much of a difference. In the input that the drive that you sent over, the spreadsheet you had me fill out, I ended up having them win 11 games. That's pretty high because they won 5-11 last year. So for them to win 6 more, I think would be rough. So I'm going to say 9-10. So have them tied there with the Broncos at 9, or maybe best them by 1, but give them the tiebreaker over Denver to get to second place. But in terms of personnel, we talked about already, you don't think Tyrod Taylor is going to start all 16 games. And I think given the opportunity, I think he could very much succeed. He had 3 pretty solid seasons with Buffalo, and I don't think those Buffalo teams had all that much talent around him. I guess LaShawn McCoy is probably the biggest name at the time. I think I don't know. There's just something about the Chargers that is saying roll with them this year, even without Rivers and Gordon. This is a make or break year for Anthony Lynn out there, I think. I do like some of their signings. They brought in Chris Harris to help in the secondary, and then they signed 2 veteran offensive linemen in Trey Turner and Brian Bulaga. I love Nick Vigil. He's probably more of a special teams guy, but at linebacker, and Linval Joseph, a defensive lineman from the Vikings, all brought in during free agency. I like that a lot. I don't think what they lost, I think they've replaced more than they lost, which sounds crazy when you're talking about Phillip Rivers and Melvin Gordon, but I don't know how much longer Phillip Rivers will be able to keep playing. They needed to move on. They needed a fresh start there. And Melvin Gordon didn't play that much last year, and when he did, he wasn't super effective. So I don't think they're losing all that much. And again, in this league, running backs are a dime a dozen. They have Eckler there. They drafted Joshua Kelly, and they also have Justin Jackson. So I think they'll be okay at running back. And I expect Tyrod Taylor to start a bulk of the games this year. And if they're doing as well as I'm saying they're going to, I don't see why Justin Herbert should have to sniff the field as a rookie. Let him learn. He's of the quarterbacks taken in the first round of draft this year. He's a little bit raw. Not Jordan Love raw, but still I don't think he's as polished as Joe Burrow and Tua Tagovailoa was. So Herbert could use a year in the NFL getting used to that system. They have talent at wide receiver. Keenan Allen is a big one. Mike Williams, and they drafted. I like KJ Hill, who's a late round pick at Ohio State, but I think they've got decent talent there as well. And Virgil Green and Hunter Henry, a pretty good 1-2 duo at tight end. And I mentioned they brought in 2 offensive linemen to add to that group. I was always a huge supporter and fan of Forrest Lamp. I don't personally. Mike Pouncey, I think, leaves a lot to be desired, but on the field, he can be one of the more dominant offensive linemen out there. So I think the line should be good enough with Bulaga, Lamp, Pouncey, and Trey Turner. I think that's a pretty solid foundation. And anyone with the name of Bosa, they just seem to dominate at times. And Joey, when healthy, has been able to do that for the Chargers, similar to his younger brother Nick has been doing with the 49ers last year. And I mentioned they brought in Linval Joseph. They still have Melvin Ingram. And they drafted Kenneth Murray, who was, at the time, I wasn't certain if they maybe could have waited a little bit to get him. Did they have to jump up and get him at 23 in this past first round? But the more and more I watch on Kenneth Murray, I think they got a steal and someone that could be a starter there for a long time. So Kenneth Murray is definitely someone to watch, I think, for possible defensive rookie of the year material for Kenneth Murray, the linebacker that they just picked up in the draft from Oklahoma. So, again, I don't know. Could it happen? I think so. Harris, Hayward, James in the defensive backfield, I think is a solid trio there. They added another piece or two there to fill in, and I don't know. I'm just a fan of the Chargers this year. I think they are in the running for a wild card spot, and that's with Tyrod Taylor at quarterback. Sometimes just getting those big personalities out of a locker room
Yeah.
can change dynamics, and that's not really a negative about Phillip Rivers. That we've seen it happen so many times with other teams in the past. I just think the Chargers could be the team to surprise this year.
And that very well could be. I should make it clear. I don't think that it's necessarily going to be Tyrod Taylor that he like plays himself out of it. I just don't know. Like, I feel like, yeah, you mentioned that maybe it is addition by subtraction for that team this year. And if so, that's good. And I would be happy for Tyrod Taylor to finally get like his shot, which it would also be really interesting if they start doing really well. The dynamic that is with you drafted the young quarterback when, what does that look like moving forward? But I just don't know that they're going to make a big enough jump. And I think that pressure is going to get to them like it does to every team that says, oh, we're not looking to start our young guy right away. And then they all start the young guy, not right away, all of them, but fairly early. So I think it's going to end up looking more like that. But you're right. Like, there has been enough turnover that like it wouldn't completely surprise me if they were able to get it going in the right direction. And you absolutely nailed it with they are the best uniforms of the remakes. And so if we can see more of that, that would be wonderful.
So that's my 4-3-2. So who is your number two?
All right. My number two, I'm going with the Raiders. I'm going to put the Raiders at like 9 wins. And like you said, that may be looking at one of those back end playoff spots, but I'm not looking at them as like a serious contender. I think they're going to be right around average. I have them here a game or two better than the Broncos, but I see the Broncos as getting better whereas I see the Raiders more stagnant, kind of like not sure where they're going to go, because I look at it like if the Broncos are around 500, I look at it as, all right, you probably know what you're getting from the defense, but your offense looks to be building. And you mentioned the weapons that they added and all of that stuff. And, maybe they found their quarterback and all those things. If the Raiders are a game above, 500, I don't necessarily look at that as, oh, they I don't know that really answers anything. I don't know if that answers that John Gruden's the guy. I don't know if that answers that they've, that their odd drafting has been validated. I don't know if that answers whether or not, they have their quarterback. So I feel like we're going to be at the same spot next year with the Raiders as well, being like, I don't know what's going on. Who knows what they're going to be? So I think they're going to be all right. I think they're going to get a bump. I think there's going to be a lot of excitement around them in Vegas and all of that stuff. I say that. That's all, with an asterisk, because who knows what that'll look like. But, in an ideal world, there's going to be a lot of hoopla out there and everything. I don't know. I think they're going to be okay, but I by far see the team I have at number one walking away with this division. And I think they may have a couple slip ups throughout the year. I don't think it's going to be like a well-oiled machine necessarily, but I just think they're too good to not walk away with this division. And not to like gloss over my number two at the Raiders there, but like, I think they're the best of the rest kind of by default. Cause I don't think the Chargers, like I said, I'm not a believer in the Chargers this year. Maybe they'll prove me wrong. I think the Broncos are going to get there, but I don't think they're there yet. I think the Raiders are still mediocre enough to kind of hold on to that second place by default right now. But I have the Chiefs by and far the best team in the division, and will be battling for best team in the conference and in the league, in my opinion. I see that the Chiefs winning probably like 12 games. I just feel like that 12-13 win mark was kind of where you find Andy Reid's teams most years. And And like I said, I think the Raiders are the best of the rest for now, but I think the Chiefs are going to have this locked up pretty much maybe a week or two after Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I completely agree. I have the Chiefs at number 1. Did you say how many wins for them?
I'm going to put them at 12 just because I feel like that's Andy Reid's magic number. He seems to be right around that 12 wins a lot.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm going Chiefs first and a record of 12-4. That's exactly where I'm going to have them. And I don't see why anyone should think that they won't win the division. As much as I like the direction that the Broncos are going and have some weird optimism about the Chargers, I don't see them being on the same level as the Chiefs. So 12-4, that's where the Chiefs finished the last 2 years and 3 of the last 4 under Andy Reid. They've won 4 straight division titles. They are Super Bowl champs. They're the defending world champions in American pro football. And what have they lost? What significant players have gone on to other teams, and not really any significant ones that I think matter. They've lost a couple reserve backup cornerbacks. Maybe Kendall Fuller jumps out at you. Maybe linebacker Darren Lee, Reggie Ragland have moved on. But sure, LaShawn McCoy and Spencer Ware again, but those were guys that were rotational pieces, or they were reserve pieces, not that big a deal. And I love Stefan Wisniewski, and he's won a couple Super Bowls now with the Eagles and the Chiefs, but he was a spot injury starter that just got to play because of that reason. I don't know that, maybe their biggest loss is Dustin Colquitt, the punter. Field position is a huge part of the game, so they need to find out who's gonna replace him. What are they gonna do about that? But they, added to the overwhelming abundance of electric offensive talent when they drafted Clyde Edwards-Helaire at the end of the first round, the running back from LSU, and they just keep on keeping on, and good for them. They still have that rookie deal with Patrick Mahomes, which just looks brilliant. Obviously, they picked up his 5th-year option, so he's entering his 4th year this year. He's got one more under team control. They would like to hammer out a new contract with him, I believe, before the season starts. Obviously, the pandemic is throwing a wrench into a lot of those financial discussions, but he definitely, obviously, deserves a new contract before he even can tempt the unrestricted free agency waters.
Right. On that note, real quick, on that little side note, what do you predict will be the guaranteed number for? Because predicting the overall number is nearly impossible. What do you think the guaranteed money will be for Mahomes when that deal gets done, whenever it is?
Well, what was the last big quarterback contract that came out? I mean, I guess it's tough to say about what Brady just got from Tampa Bay because of his age and his accomplishments.
Right.
His accomplishments certainly outweigh what Mahomes done, but age is certainly in Patrick's corner there.
Right.
Yeah, but I'm thinking his AAV is going to be probably 45.
Yeah.
I should say maybe before we operated in a world where economies are being destroyed because of the global pandemic, I would expect him to be what, because people are talking about, and I'm not sure how truthful it is or if it's even was ever on the table about Dak asking for 40 a year. And obviously Mahomes is much more accomplished and more gifted than Dak Prescott is. But Mahomes, I think, easily before all of this coronavirus stuff would have been at least 40, if not 45. You could have been pushing maybe 50 at one time. But I think you're going to see salary caps and escrow throw a wrench into a lot of these huge contracts that usually quarterbacks end up landing. So in terms of guaranteed money, it's tough for me to say because I can only think of Brady's contract right now, and I don't think that's a very good comparison.
Well, I know, right, but I think, I'm just trying to think of the guaranteed money in some of those other guys. Let's see here.
Well, who was the last
Just trying to-
big name quarterback to sign? To sign a new contract. Who got an extension recently?
Would it have been Goff? Because I feel like Wentz was before all of those guys, right? Like,
Yeah, I
they
mean, well,
signed
so
Wentz.
Tannehill just signed the 4-year extension with the Titans, and he's not in the same stratosphere as Mahomes is. And
Okay,
his
so
4-year deal was for
here we go.
118 and 62
says-
guaranteed.
Right. So, like, this, I'm trying to look to see when this article was from. Of course. Oh, this was from March. So, in March, highest remaining or fully guaranteed money, Matt Ryan was at $94.5 million.
Okay, Goff's
Aaron
extension.
Rodgers, right. Aaron Rodgers is at 70, just under 79 million guaranteed. Russell Wilson 70. Wentz is at 66 guaranteed. Same with Cousins and Tannehill. Goff is at 57 million guaranteed.
So this says he agreed to a 4-year extension worth 134 million, featuring 110 million guaranteed, an NFL record for guaranteed money. So is that what
Was
he has
that
left
for who?
for Goff?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I believe this is for what they have left because I feel like they front-loaded Goff with the signing bonus and
Right.
like lots of that
So
stuff.
when he signed it a year ago, though, it was 110 million guaranteed.
Right. So, like, that's why, right, when I look at those numbers, I think Mahomes is going to end up somewhere in that, like, 135 to 150 million guaranteed.
I was just about to say
like
150, but I maybe because of the way things are now, it'll be a little bit less.
Right.
But in the grand scheme of
surprise
things,
me. It wouldn't surprise, like, and again, we know we're talking crazy numbers here, but like, when I say this, if I say 5 years at 40 million a year average, like, that sounds like I believe he could get that. You know what I mean? So if you're talking 200 million. And then you're like 150 guaranteed. Like, I know that's a lot, but like, I wouldn't be like, no, that's absolutely more than he's going to get. I'm not confident saying that.
right? Not when you're discussing the other quarterbacks that we just mentioned.
Right. And who knows what'll happen this year? But like, people are like, oh, he could, go down in value. You're right. Or he could also win another Super Bowl. Like,
and then
what
what
if he did that?
Right.
Like,
yeah, it's tough.
Oh man,
it's tough to think about. That's for sure.
But yeah, you're right, and it's not the same world, but in a world where, in a related world where Kirk Cousins can go and get a fully guaranteed $90 million contract or whatever, like, the number that Mahomes could get, and it would be interesting to see what he could get if he continues the success. Whew.
Yeah,
man, yeah.
It's really,
the Chiefs
really
want to get him
crazy.
done, right? But yeah, so, and we'll see what those numbers look like too, because like the number of years, because they may want to spread it out, but who knows? He may not want to spread it out. Like that's one of the things with Dak right now. What Dak is supposedly only wants a 4-year deal, to maybe try and get another big deal in before he would be, kind of riding it out. Who knows?
Right.
But,
yeah. It's tough. It's tough to say. That's for sure. We do have a few people sending in their predictions for how the AFC West is going to go. Yeah. My dad texted me. He said he's got it from the bottom to the top. So 4th place, Denver. 3rd place, Raiders. 2nd place, Chargers. And 1st place, Kansas City. So that's similar to mine. I just flip-flop Broncos and Raiders with him. I saw my uncle saying Denver, Las Vegas, Los Angeles, and I assume Kansas City then at 1. So again, that's what my dad has. So my dad and my uncle are on the same page there. And your mom says Chargers last, Raiders 3rd, Denver 2nd, and then we're just assuming Chiefs at 1. I think we're all just like, it's definitely Chiefs at 1.
Right. Even if it doesn't happen, I feel like you're a liar if you think you're going to call it. You know?
Yeah, I feel like anyone that's not picking the Chiefs to finish first in the AFC West in 2020,
you're You're just a contrarian.
You're trying to be a contrarian, hoping you strike gold. Like I feel like that's
Right,
where you're
right.
at. So
Hey, and you do you, I guess,
yeah, I
right?
mean, it comes around. It'll probably happen to us in one of the divisions that we'll have to go out there on a limb. But that's something that I was thinking about today because I think where was I looking? I think it was a predictions done somewhere. You know, odds to win a division, odds to win the Super Bowl, and stuff like that. I'm like, there's not enough turnover. How many years have we seen over the last 15, maybe 20 years that, before this season there were always 6 playoff teams and usually at least 2, if not 3, and sometimes 4 of the teams were different. Right. In both conferences. It's basically a 50%. It was like 3 out of 6 on both sides.
And think about how often you just write the Patriots in as one of the teams that's going to be the same.
Right.
So it's crazy.
Yeah, but so that's why last week I was like, well, technically the Seahawks didn't win the division last year. It was the 49ers. So I got to put the 49ers on the bubble. But the Seahawks, well, that's already one team that's duplicate from last year. Now we're in the AFC side of that. And, well, I'm already duplicating with the Chiefs. So that's why I'm like, I got to have someone else up there as possible differences for the wild card. And that's why I think the Chargers and Broncos hanging there as possibilities for me helps me out in the long run. And I guess the Raiders for you would be there as well.
Yeah. Yep.
So, we won't get to the wild cards for a few months, but, right now I feel confident knowing that I can have the Cardinals or 49ers out west or in the NFC, and then the Broncos and Chargers in the AFC. They're options. At least those would be, 3 of those 4 would be different teams because the Broncos, Chargers, and Cardinals did not make the playoffs last year. So that's why I'm like, well, sorry, 49ers. I can't have the Cardinals make it, and I don't want the 49ers in. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. So, but yeah, the Chiefs are by far, I think, the best team. And, Mahomes, Damian Williams, they add Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Their wide receiver talent, Mecole Hardman, Tyreek Hill, Demarcus Robinson, Sammy Watkins, Travis Kelce. And defensively, they were able to get it done when it mattered. So I still don't know if they're, I don't think they can ever be in the discussion of one of the greatest teams ever because they have deficiencies and issues. And you see them lose games. They're going to lose 3 to 5 games during the regular season. They're not dominant because they don't have the defense that can match what the offense does. Without putting up 30-plus points and holding teams to 10 or less. But they get enough done to win because obviously they're on the top of the mountain right now. They reached the summit as the voiceover says at the beginning from their radio broadcast, and now everyone's trying to knock them down. And I don't know if it's going to happen. I think the Chiefs are definitely one of the, if not the best team in the AFC entering 2020.
Right. No, I'm on board.
All right. Anything else to say about Kansas City and the AFC West in 2020?
No, it'll be interesting. The Broncos and Chiefs will obviously be in the same stadiums, but the Chargers and the Raiders are both going to be in new stadiums this year. So I know Adam Schefter just posted a picture of the inside of, is it SoFi Stadium? I think maybe
SoFi's in Los Angeles.
And, yeah, and was like, what do you think? Do you think it's going to be ready? And I was like, I don't know. Now in LA, honestly, it's not the end of the world because there are plenty of venues that could, host them if they needed it.
Right.
But that's not necessarily the case in Vegas. I mean, I guess they could maybe play where UNLV plays.
I was going to say UNLV.
But I know there was talk about, this was maybe a few weeks ago, I saw an article that was like, they may actually have to ask, they were worried at the time, and would they have to ask Oakland if they could use the stadium again? And they're like, basically like, the Raiders will not ask because they don't think Oakland would allow them to do it. But, yeah, it's like not asking a question because you're pretty sure they're going to say no.
Right.
But,
so real quick before we wrap up, since you put all this work into getting our game-by-game predictions, I want to revisit the NFC West just because I think it's interesting the way some of the things fell. My final prediction for the NFC West in 2020 was Seattle, San Francisco, Arizona, and then Los Angeles. And I don't know if the Seahawks have a tougher schedule, or at least in my eyes, I think they do, because I had them winning 10, whereas I have the Niners winning 12. So, I think obviously that's part of it. I'm not going to change my predictions. I still think Seattle, and actually, I said Niners I had in second. I'm sorry, I had the Cardinals in second, I believe. But I think those three teams are going to be pretty close. I still favor Seattle, but in the game-by-game predictions that you created, I actually had them finishing third because I had the Niners at 12, the Cardinals at 11, and the Seahawks at 10. So I definitely probably gave at least a game or two to the Cardinals that maybe I shouldn't have, and I should have given a game or two more to the Seahawks. But I think Seahawks, Niners, and Cardinals could be a fun little battle, but both of us are definitely down on the Rams. We both had them winning 4 or 5 games respectively.
Yeah. It's interesting, and I talked to you a little bit about this before the show. Like, the thing I noticed overall is that, like, the teams that I think are going to be good, I overvalued a lot in the game-by-game predictions, and the teams I think are going to be bad, I probably undervalued a lot in the game-by-game predictions. But I guess technically mine could work out the way I had it planned, because I picked Seahawks, Cardinals, Niners, Rams, and technically I have the Niners and Cardinals tied at 10 wins. So, the Cardinals could get the break there. But like the Seahawks, I have it 13 wins when I picked it game by game. 13 wins is a lot of wins. Like that's really good. And while I think they are really good, I don't like, it's hard to predict that a team that didn't win their division last year and the team that did made it to the Super Bowl. And I think the Cardinals are going to be, significantly better. So like, when I think about just the competition, it's hard to say any team from that division is going to win 13 games, let alone the Seahawks. So I don't know that I think that they're going to win 13, but I think they're going to win. And it was interesting to pick the games, but
it was definitely fun. Like I said, it's a nice little thing to add in while we're talking our placement of the divisions here, because some of them I agree with. I think my AFC West, I did pretty good. I may have favored the Chargers a little more than I should have, but I did want to place them second, and that was definitely in my mind. But looking back on the NFC West, my uncle does text me and says that I did have the 49ers second. I was thinking I had maybe put the Cardinals there. So Seahawks, Niners, Cardinals, I think will definitely all be up there at the top with the Rams trailing. But my uncle is definitely on top of things and keeping me in check of where I had just a week ago.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, we gave him a shout out for that a week ago, too.
Yeah, well, he is right. He is listening along. He's right on top of that. And he says, I did have the Niners in second in the NFC West. So I think it'll be a fun battle. Like I said, I think Niners take a step back. Seahawks maybe a step up. But the Cardinals are closing, at least we both think, this year with the Rams falling behind. So, all right. Well, Justin, do you have anything to say before I let you go? Any shout outs or anything?
Not off the top of my head. No, not right now.
All right. We just want to wish everyone a safe and happy end to your Memorial Day weekend, and have a wonderful Memorial Day tomorrow. And we thank everyone that paid the ultimate sacrifice for this great country. And we hope everyone takes a moment to remember all those that are no longer with us tomorrow. We will be back next Sunday, the last day of May, May 31st, and we will head back to the NFC for the NFC South, which is definitely one that will be an interesting discussion as we're talking about the division that is now home to Tom Brady as he takes residence in Tampa Bay. So,
I have a feeling your uncle will be tuning in, or at least chiming in if he can't watch live next week. I'm sure he'll have something to say.
Yeah, you would think so. Hopefully he has that opportunity to watch live, and we can get his take on Tampa Bay and Tom Brady there, and get to talk about the Falcons, the Saints, and the Panthers. And we'll have our game-by-game breakdowns to try to keep us honest, and we'll see how we have them finishing as we work on part 3 of our 2020 NFL preview. So, Justin, we're going to let you go. Thanks for joining me, and have a good week, and we'll talk to you next Sunday.
All right, sounds good.
All right, so I'm going to begin to wrap things up here, but before I go, I do want to thank our sponsors, May's Sandwich Shop and Small Player Big
Ever wish there was a sports app just for you? Introducing Small Player Big Play app, the all-sports social media app for young athletes. Live stream events for your friends and family who can't be there. At home or at work, they can watch your streaming on their phones or on TV by using a mirroring device or AirPlay 2. Download the app from the App Store or Google Play and create an account using a valid email address. That's it. Now you can find friends, join groups, or make new ones. You can upload and watch your own content for free. Watch YouTube uploads for free. Even more streaming options are available with our subscription plans and in-app purchases. Download the app and start sharing with the world your passion for sports today.
All right, again, thank you to Small Player Big Play. Check them out at smallplayerbigplay.com and get your mobile app downloaded to your device and be ready to stream those youth sports events. But that's it for us here at the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show for episode 307. Join us again next week for episode 308. And we hope everyone has a great Memorial Day. And we'll see you back here again real soon. Thanks for listening, everyone.
That's a wrap on this episode of the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show, brought to you by May's Sandwich Shop. Woo-hoo! You can watch each weekly episode live on Facebook, Periscope, or YouTube. Be sure to like, follow, or subscribe to the show on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and Google Play. You can also rate and review us on many of these platforms as well. We'd love to hear from you. Send your emails to the Mays Sandwich Shop inbox at joemaysandjraff@gmail.com. The Joe Mays and J-Raff Show is a part of the JMNJR Radio Network, home to other productions such as The Bulldog Hour, Tangents with Friends, and Nat Chats with Dad. Until next time.